RealityOS System Primer. You should complete this section before interacting with any additional episodes. This episode is the foundational orientation required before learning to design reality using RealityOS. It introduces the conceptual model that governs the system, the structure of the learning sequence, and the functional role of assumptions, emotion, and attention within the operating environment. Instead of viewing life as a chain of random events, you learn to work with the deeper part of yourself that creates the conditions you live through. 1. Purpose of RealityOS. RealityOS is a new unified framework that presents consciousness, life, and reality as an executable system. The framework allows you to understand reality engineering as the process through which internal operations generate observable experience and how to configure those operations intentionally. The purpose of RealityOS is to offer a structured method for interacting with the source layer of experience. Rather than treating life as a random chain of events, RealityOS frames it as the output of a continuous compile cycle. This system is not intended to inspire or motivate. It provides a technical description of how inner instructions convert into external conditions. The foundational principle is straightforward. Internal assumptions function as active code. Emotion functions as the compiler. Attention functions as the execution pointer. The physical world is then the rendered interface. Or in layman's terms, what you assume creates the script, emotion locks it in, and attention makes it run. Here's a simple example to illustrate this. A user may carry an assumption such as, "I am wanted and chosen by my partner." Once that assumption is emotionally accepted, the user naturally feels valued or wanted. When attention is placed on that feeling, the internal state stabilizes. As a result, the user begins to observe physical behavior from the partner that reflects closeness, interest, and initiation. The external shift follows the internal configuration. Within the RealityOS model, there are no exceptions to these rules, absolutely none. Every pattern, outcome, and circumstance arises from an internal instruction set that most users have never been taught to observe. 2. System Architecture Overview. RealityOS operates across 3 primary layers, each responsible for a distinct aspect of your lived experience. Layer 1, the interface. The interface consists of the visible world. This is the world you can see. Your relationships, work, arguments, money, opportunities, and daily events. It represents the 3-dimensional experience of daily life. This layer reflects the compiled output of internal processes and therefore displays results, not causes. Many users mistakenly assume that the interface initiates experience, but RealityOS corrects this by placing causation upstream in the internal system. Layer 2, the system. The system layer contains the invisible code that generates the interface. It includes beliefs, assumptions, emotional patterns, memories, identity constructs, and internal narratives. These elements interact continuously to produce external conditions. All meaningful modification occurs at this layer because it contains the active instruction set. Everything in your life rises from this layer. Layer 3, the author. The author layer, when I say author, think coder or programmer, just the person that is writing the instructions, aka code that is to be rendered, contains the initiating intelligence that selects assumptions, assigns meaning, and directs attention. Although most people identify with the outer world, which traps them in reactive living, RealityOS trains users to return to this author layer and operate the system intentionally. While you are not a computer, the degree of influence you have over experience is closer to that of a coder working with source logic than a passive observer watching events unfold. RealityOS maintains the function of these layers and expresses them through system terminology for clarity and usability. 3. Core mechanic, assumption as code. RealityOS is driven by the observation that assumptions accepted as true become the instructions that shape experience. This mechanism functions through 4 interconnected stages. Stage 1. Selection of assumption. A user selects or inherits a belief about themselves, others, or the world. This belief may be conscious or unconscious and becomes part of the active logic that determines what the system attempts to render. Stage 2. Emotional acceptance. Emotion is the mechanism through which the system confirms an instruction. Once a belief is emotionally accepted, it becomes executable code. The moment the user accepts an assumption as true, even when circumstances have not yet updated, the compiler resolves the instruction. Stage 3. Sustained attention. Attention maintains the instruction by keeping it active. This is less about effort and more about remaining loyal to the internal environment you intend to cultivate. The steadiness of attention determines the speed of compilation. Longer stability produces faster and cleaner renders. Later modules address how fear and doubt interfere with this process. Stage 4, external render. The physical world updates to match the internal instruction set. Delays in the external environment often reflect system latency rather than resistance. Many users attempt to alter the external render without modifying the underlying assumption. This approach preserves the loop and recreates the same patterns. RealityOS teaches users to work directly at the code layer to prevent repetition. 4. The learning model. The RealityOS curriculum is delivered through a dual-track system across 52 weeks. The two tracks are designated as A and B. Track A, alpha episodes, are the conceptual orientation. Alpha episodes present the conceptual model for each week. They clarify mechanisms, internal logic, and the structural significance of the principles being introduced. These episodes provide the foundational understanding needed to navigate the system. Think of them as the Reality Engineering 101. Track B, Bravo episodes function as the advanced application. Bravo episodes expand each weekly concept into applied reality engineering, actively programming your reality using RealityOS. They focus on execution at the author level through operational instructions, pattern recognition, and state management. Listeners may listen to alpha episodes alone or pair both tracks for expanded depth. It is important to begin each week with alpha, as it establishes the conceptual base that Bravo then extends. 5. System progression. This series unfolds in 4 phases across the year, each representing a distinct shift in operational capacity. Phase 1. Awakening the interface. This phase introduces the system view. Users learn to identify internal logic behind external conditions, understand compiler behavior, and recognize how identity-based loops maintain familiar experiences. Phase 2. Developer mode. This phase focuses on internal debugging. Users learn to identify contradictions, error codes, memory patterns, and inherited scripts. They begin replacing reactive processing with intentional state management. Phase 3. Architect mode. This phase introduces creation through design. Users learn to build frameworks, configure dependencies, reshape identity architectures, and influence probability fields. Experience becomes a designed output rather than a reactive interpretation. Phase 4. Jailbreak mode. This phase dissolves the belief that external conditions function as independent causes. Users return to the author layer, design outcomes from completion, and operate directly from the source environment. 6. System assumptions. Reality. OS is grounded on 4 non-negotiable system concepts. 1. Consciousness is the operating system. Your internal state is the primary determinant of external conditions. 2. Assumption generates experience. No external condition exists beyond the assumption that sustains it. 3. Feeling is the compiler. Emotion resolves assumptions into executable form. 4. Attention is the pointer. The instruction that receives attention becomes the instruction that runs. These are not philosophical statements. They describe the functional behavior of the system. 7. Identity and state. Identity is understood as a composite of many assumptions. A state is the active configuration of those assumptions in any given moment. States produce predictable interpretations, behaviors, and expectations. The external world reflects whichever state is active. Users frequently attempt to change behavior without altering the state that behavior emerges from. This creates conflict, inconsistency, or stagnation. RealityOS instructs users to shift states directly, which bypasses behavioral friction. In practical terms, this means entering the internal environment of the outcome and allowing the external world to update accordingly. 8. Using this curriculum. The RealityOS curriculum should be approached as an engineering discipline. It requires clarity, observation, consistency, and precision. It does not rely on willpower or struggle. It relies on correct usage of the system mechanics. The recommended sequence is as follows. Complete Season 0. Begin with Week 1A. If desired, follow with Week 1B. Move 1 week at a time. Avoid skipping or rearranging modules because each one depends on the previous layer. By the end of the 52-week progression, the user will understand how to operate from the author layer. External reality will no longer appear as a cause but as an effect. The system view will become natural. 9. Closing note. RealityOS does not meddle in metaphysics. It translates the mechanics of assumption-based experience into a technical structure designed for modern thinkers who understand frameworks and systems. Imagination functions as the design environment, and assumption functions as the instruction. Both point to the same source within the user. This primer prepares you for that source. Welcome to RealityOS, and enjoy the path of becoming a reality engineer.